Imagine a world steeped in pagan rituals and ruled by an iron fist, where whispers of a new faith, a radical love, began to circulate. This wasn't a world of hashtags and viral videos, but of whispered secrets and handwritten letters, passed hand to hand like precious embers in the dark. This is the story of the early Christian church, a story of unlikely heroes, unwavering faith, and a growth so explosive and so miraculous it defied all logic and expectation. Our journey begins in the ashes of Jerusalem, the year 70 AD. The Roman Empire, in its brutal efficiency, had crushed a Jewish rebellion, leaving the holy city in ruins. But from this devastation, a surprising seed of hope emerged. Christians, heeding Jesus' prophetic warning to flee to the hills, had escaped the carnage. While the Jewish population reeled from the blow, the Christian movement, largely unnoticed by Rome, began to quietly flourish. For the next 25 years, a relative peace settled over the land. Historical records of this period are scant, painting a picture of a church growing organically, almost invisibly. Like a gentle rain nourishing parched earth, the message of Jesus spread, drawing converts from all walks of life. Rome, under the steady hand of Vespasian, had stabilized. Its gaze turned elsewhere. Christians, for the moment, were free to live and worship without the constant fear of persecution that had marked their earlier years under Nero. But this tranquility wouldn't last. The year 95 AD saw the rise of Domitian, a Roman emperor who revived the fires of persecution. Though brief, Domitian's crackdown was a stark reminder of the ever-present political threat the church faced. Sporadic, sometimes sustained persecutions became the new normal, like sudden storms disrupting a peaceful landscape. Yet, even under this pressure, the Christian faith continued its remarkable expansion. This wasn't a religion of the powerful or privileged, but of everyday people willing to risk everything for their belief in Jesus. The 2nd century dawned, and the church found itself caught in a three-pronged assault. Rome, the Jewish community, and pagan influences all posed significant threats to the burgeoning movement. Let's delve into the political pressures first, focusing on a fascinating exchange between Pliny the Younger, a Roman proconsul, and Emperor Trajan. Picture Pliny, a fair-minded, stoic Roman, grappling with a dilemma: what to do with these Christians brought before his court. He wasn't a Christian himself, but he was committed to justice. In 117 AD, Pliny wrote a letter to Trajan seeking guidance. He described his method. Ask the accused directly if they were Christians. If they confessed, he'd warn them. Ask again, and a third time. Persistence resulted in execution. Pliny, somewhat puzzled, wrote, "I have no doubt whatever else they confess to, certainly this pertinency and inflexible obstinacy ought to be punished. Stubbornness apparently was a crime in the Roman Empire." Pliny then stumbled upon a curious fact. Real Christians, it was said, could not bring themselves to curse Christ. He even incorporated this into his judicial process. If someone, under the threat of death, would denounce Jesus, Pliny considered them acquitted. Imagine that. Even at this early stage, the Christian commitment to Jesus was so renowned, so absolute, that it became a legal test. Pliny's letter reveals another crucial detail: that Christianity was spreading like wildfire. He expressed concern about the number of people endangered, noting that many of all ages, all classes, and both sexes already are brought into danger, and shall be in the future. This wasn't a fringe movement anymore. It was touching every level of Roman society, permeating not just the cities, but the villages and the countryside. Pliny, ever the pragmatist, believed that with the right measures, this contagion could be stopped. But history, of course, proves him wrong. But Rome wasn't the only challenge. From within the Jewish community arose a different kind of threat. After the fall of Jerusalem, many Jewish Christians found refuge in Antioch, a city 200 miles to the north. which became a hub for a very Jewish form of Christianity. While undoubtedly sincere, this branch of the faith tilted so heavily towards the Jewish traditions that it led to some interesting interpretations. Take the Allegoi, for example, a late 1st century group who rejected the term logos, which is the word, to describe Jesus. They saw it as an unwelcome intrusion of Greek philosophy, a corruption of true Jewish understanding. This trend continued into the early 2nd century with the Ebionites, who, while accepting Jesus as the Messiah, denied his divinity. They believed Jesus was born of a virgin, but adopted by God at his baptism, a concept known as adoptionism. Sound familiar? Well, this is strikingly similar to the beliefs of modern-day Jehovah's Witnesses. The Ebionite influence was significant, even provoking the first major church council in history, the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which was called to address the teachings of Arius, another proponent of this adoptionist view. The third threat coming from the pagan world was perhaps the most insidious: Gnosticism, derived from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge, offered a seductive blend of Christian ideas and Greek philosophy. Picture Plato's philosopher kings, those with a special insight into a higher realm of truth. Gnostics believed they possessed this secret knowledge, this gnosis, setting them apart from the ordinary believer. Marcion, the most prominent Gnostic, outright rejected the Old Testament and its God, whom he called the demiurge, a flawed, even malevolent creator. Jesus, in Marcion's view, came not to reconcile us to this demiurge, but to save us from him. In his view, Jesus was the ultimate Gnostic master, revealing the hidden truth to the elect. This was a significant challenge to the developing Christian orthodoxy. But the church wasn't defenseless. In the face of these threats, a new breed of Christian thinkers emerged, the apologists. These weren't people saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," but they were brilliant defenders of the faith, offering reasoned arguments against their detractors. Think of them as the first Christian lawyers, making their case before the court of public opinion. Justin Martyr, a peripatetic philosopher, literally walking the talk. Imagine him strolling into a Roman marketplace, setting out his hat and launching into a lecture on, say, the philosophy of Anaximander. But woven subtly into his discourse were threads of Christian truth, leading his listeners toward a surprising conclusion. Jesus was the ultimate philosopher, the Logos made flesh. Justin's Apologia, written to Emperor Antoninus Pius during a period of intense persecution, defended Christians against charges of cannibalism, incest, insurrection, and even atheism. He argued that Christians were, in fact, Rome's best citizens, obedient to the law and committed to peace. Then there's Irenaeus, a student of Polycarp, but more on him later, who penned a comprehensive critique of Gnosticism around 185 AD. This wasn't light reading. It's known for being rather dense, but it provided invaluable insight into the Gnostic movement and offered a robust defense of Orthodox Christianity. What's truly remarkable about Irenaeus is his connection to the Apostolic Age. He would occasionally pause in his writing to reminisce about his teacher Polycarp, who in turn had been a student of none other than John the Apostle. Reading Irenaeus, you get this uncanny sense of being just a few handshakes away from Jesus himself. Finally, we have Tertullian, a Roman lawyer turned Christian advocate. This guy had one client, the Christian Church. He used his legal skills to defend the faith, not just in court, but in the arena of ideas. Tertullian is credited with coining the term Trinity, combining two Latin terms to describe the complex nature of God revealed in the New Testament. While his understanding of the Trinity wasn't fully developed, it laid the groundwork for later theologians like Augustine to refine this essential doctrine. Bridging the gap between the apostles and the post-apostolic age were the Apostolic Fathers. These were men who had known and learned from the apostles themselves. carrying their teachings into the 2nd century. Clement of Rome, the 3rd bishop of Rome, wrote a letter to the Corinthian church around 95 AD. It addressed a timeless problem: young upstarts challenging the authority of the older generation. Clement, in a fatherly tone, reminded these young bucks to respect their elders, those with gray hair. His letter also provides evidence of a developing New Testament canon. Clement quotes freely from what we now consider New Testament writings, placing them alongside Old Testament passages, indicating that these texts were already held in high regard. Ignatius of Antioch, arrested around 106 AD and sentenced to death by wild beasts in Rome, left a powerful legacy in the letters he wrote during his journey to martyrdom. He faced his fate with let's just say, an unusual enthusiasm. His letters, though infused with a somewhat over-the-top anticipation of his gruesome end, are deeply encouraging and inspiring. And finally, we come to Polycarp of Smyrna, a figure who embodies the spirit of this era. Born in 69 AD, just before the destruction of Jerusalem in the city of Smyrna, Polycarp grew up under the tutelage of John the Apostle. Just imagine, a teenage Polycarp soaking up the wisdom of the beloved disciple and learning about Jesus firsthand. After John's death, Polycarp became the bishop of Smyrna, earning a reputation for integrity and wisdom, even among the pagans. In 155 AD, during the reign of Antoninus Pius, Polycarp, then in his mid-80s, was arrested. The proconsul, hesitant to execute such an elderly man, urged him to renounce Christ, swear by Caesar, and denounce the atheists. Polycarp, with a stern gaze and a wave of his hand, responded, "Away with the atheists!" He then famously declared, 80 and 6 years I have served him, and he never did me any injury. How then can I blaspheme my king and my savior? It gives you chills, right? The proconsul, still hoping to avoid a public execution, offered Polycarp a way out. "Swear by the fortune of Caesar." Polycarp retorted, "Since you are vainly urgent that, as you say, I should swear by the fortune of Caesar, and then pretend not to know who and what I am, hear me declare with boldness, I am a Christian." He then offered to explain his faith, but only if the proconsul would appoint a day for a proper hearing. The proconsul, sensing he wasn't getting anywhere, threatened Polycarp with wild beasts. "Bring them," Polycarp replied. "I would change my mind if it meant going from the worse to the better, but not change from the right to the wrong." Polycarp was absolutely unwavering. Finally, the proconsul resorted to the ultimate threat, fire. And Polycarp's response, "You threaten fire that burns for an hour and is over, but the judgment on the ungodly is forever, tied to the stake." His final prayer ascended, "Father, I bless you that you have deemed me worthy of this day and hour, that I might take a portion among the martyrs in the cup of Christ." And so, Polycarp joined the ranks of those who sealed their faith with their lives. The stories of these early Christians, Pliny's bewildered letter, the theological debates of Antioch, the Gnostic challenge, the courageous apologists, and the unwavering faith of the Apostolic Fathers paint a vivid picture of a church under pressure, yet thriving. This wasn't just growth. It was a miracle. It was the power of the Holy Spirit working through ordinary people, turning the world upside down. So what can we learn from these early believers? Perhaps the most important lesson is the simple truth: God's grace is sufficient. Whether facing everyday challenges or the ultimate test of faith, God equips us for what He calls us to do. He gave Polycarp the strength to face the flames. He gave Justin Martyr the words to defend the faith. And He gave the early church the power to overcome seemingly unsurmountable obstacles. And He offers that same grace to us today. This is the legacy of the early church, a spark that ignited the world and continues to burn brightly, even now. Thanks for watching, and if you like this content, please subscribe for more.